Hello and welcome to day 14 of Advent of Elixir. So today I want to talk a little bit about writing macros and how I like to debug writing macros and show you one of the cases where something can go really wrong and it can be quite difficult to figure out what exactly you need to do. So in this case, I'm writing a generated case clause, and this is this sort of an expression I think is very easy to get wrong when you're trying to generate a macro, and I think that's pretty natural. And situations where you might want to do this are sort of the cases when you want a set of case statements, what they match on, and their consequences to derive from, say, a configuration file. That way, you don't have to parse the configuration file at runtime. You can parse it at compile time and have a specifically generated case that lives inside of a function that you're going to use. If this is getting called in a hot path, this could be a very useful feature to have so that you're not continuously parsing your configuration file. You may not have known that doing something like this is indeed possible, but it is a little bit tricky. So let's read through the macro. So this is a private macro, which means that it should be usable anywhere inside of function interiors within this module, but nowhere else. The idea here is that we're going to create a quoted case statement. It's going to take the argument that we pass, or the AST for the argument that we pass, and then it's going to pass it through a set of case prongs. And here I've created the case prongs by just stacking a bunch of quoted left-hand side match arrow, right-hand side consequence quotations, one after another. Now, you already kind of have a feeling that this isn't going to work because the Elixir language server has helpfully underlined this. And here you can see it says compile error, expected arrow clauses for do in case. So that is going to be a good indication that we're doing something wrong. And in fact, if we try to compile this code, we're going to get exactly that compilation error. libadvent.ex line 16. Expected arrow clauses for do in case. Unfortunately, that's not entirely helpful because it doesn't really provide us with the path forward on how to fix this situation. So the first tool that I will reach for, usually I will have written a Macro.Inspect function. So let's go ahead and do this. I happen to think that this would be a fantastic addition to the Elixir standard library if we wanted to put it into the macro module. But as it is, I tend to write this and put it in some sort of like tools module where I can just have ready access to it. So let's see what happens when we actually try and compile this. And what you can see here is that it is sent to standard out exactly the case statement that it tried to write. And if you look at this does not look like valid syntax for a case statement. And so you can understand why the compiler got confused and was not able to generate the correct case statement that we had wanted. Let's take a look at this Macro.Inspect function. Here's how it works. We're going to take some quoted AST. We're going to convert it to a string. We're going to format the string using code.formatString. This is actually a pretty important step. Oftentimes, if you don't do this, you'll get some garbled mess that it'll be hard to interpret what's going on. And then we print that to the screen using io.puts. And then finally, we return the original quoted statement so that this AST can pass on after the macro and be used in the code successfully. Okay. So this has given us a hint of what is wrong. So now that we've seen that, let's kind of put a pin in this and I think maybe what we want to take a look at is we want to take a look at this. So we're going to io.inspect this. And what we see here is this. This is the result of the io.inspect. So keep a close eye on that. What we're going to do is we're going to create a simulated case statement inside of a quote. That is what we want. So let's go ahead and take a look at what that would look like. So quote do case argument do foo bar end. Okay, so here if we take a look at the body of the case statement that follows the do block, we see a list, and the list contains, let's see, a triple that starts with the left arrow. And then the second element of that list is another triple that again starts with the left arrow, and the left and right sides of the arrow are here. So that's how this AST looks like for whatever this code is. Now the problem is the stuff that we put a pin on right here is a list, and inside of the list is not a triple, but rather a list containing the triple. And again here, it's a list containing the triple instead of the triple directly. So that's probably our problem. Let's take a quick look and just double check to make sure that a quote statement produces a list inside of a triple. And you can see here that when we have this quote statement, it makes the triple inside of a list. And that's not what we want. We want this case statement to have just the triples by themselves, not wrapped inside of a list. So how do we do that? We're just going to do enum.flatMap and then against the identity function. And so that should make this so that the triples are no longer inside of lists. And if we do IEXS mix, what we see is we see this get inspected. We don't have these triples inside of lists anymore. And the Macro.Inspect has printed out what the code should look like, which is case argument do foo bar, which is exactly what we want. And then moreover, when we try and run it, let's do run advent.run foo. We get what we expect, and advent.run bar, we get exactly what we expect. So another way in which I use the Macro.Inspect often is I will often make the macro take an options. In this case, we'll make it be some sort of keyword list, which defaults to nothing. And then what I'll do is I will pass it to an inspect function that can take opts dump. So that if I called the macro with dump true, it would then inspect the contents. And if I called it with nothing, either no list or using the default empty list, then it wouldn't print out the inspect function. This is really useful when you want to write a macro that you expect other people to use and that they might not have complete confidence in being able to understand exactly what your code inside of the macro is doing. At this point, for example, I would definitely consider putting a dump option for this because already we've got this enum flat map with a couple of quotes. I don't exactly know what that's doing, and there's enough indirection here where if I wanted to trust the code that was coming out, I would want to see it. So this sort of an option, especially if you can write your own inspect function that respects this, can be extremely useful. Okay, so hopefully this video has helped you understand a couple of tools that will help you write macros and more importantly help you debug the macros that you write when they don't go right. With that said, have a good day, and I will see you tomorrow.